Hey guys, it's TheFrXion here, Tank12, however you want to call me, I don't really care, and welcome back to World of Tanks. Today we're going to be reviewing the CS-52 LIS, and obviously we're going to have a game afterwards that we're going to check out. And yeah, I have finished this entire fucking thing up until stage 8, and I was no longer able to play World of Tanks anymore. And I needed like a couple of days where I was just gone from the game, and thank God it has given me a little bit of a breathing moment, a breather, because these marathons always are such long and strenuous, and you got to invest so much time into them. But to be fair, this vehicle is really cool. It's what I first imagined the T-44 100 was going to be, or the T-54 prototype, but just with a bigger gun. And I think my analysis on that is pretty much spot on, because this tank is a lot of fun to be played in the game. Even against tier 10s and tier 9s, this thing actually is not doing too bad. So, you know what? You guys know how it works here. We're giving you the rundown, the characteristics, what this tank is like, how it is supposed to be, used in the game, and then we're gonna jump right into the gameplay. And in the end, I'm gonna give you guys kind of a verdict on if this tank was actually worth it or not. Now, basically, the marathon has come to an end last week, and I think a lot of people picked it up, so probably it might be too late since I was not able to buy this tank at day one. I'm not like made out of gold, made out of money, so I didn't buy it immediately, but we're gonna give you guys still a review, tips and tricks, like what was it called, the playlist, like the best premium tanks. We're gonna put that into there, and yeah, I think it might be a pretty damn good premium tank overall, if you compare it to other vehicles that were released in the last couple of years, months, weeks, whatever. So first and foremost, let's talk about the main protagonist on this vehicle, and that is certainly the gun. The gun is 100 and what was the caliber? Let me just check real fast. Research. 105 millimeter gun at tier 8, which is highly competitive and very, very strong. It has 320 alpha damage, so it goes into the same category as the Lorraine 40T. It goes into the same category. No, I think the Lorraine 40T does not have 320, if I'm correct, but it goes into the same category as the Lansen C and the T-34-3, like high damage output medium tanks at tier 8. Like, we haven't seen a lot of them at premium or even standard. We don't see a lot of them, so it's always nice. And the average penetration of 208 millimeters with AP, that is still decent enough, and with a very good rate of fire of 7.57 rounds per minute. That is a reload time of 8 seconds almost. But for a caliber of this gun, having 8 seconds reload time as a medium tank, that is pretty good, in my honest opinion. Now, the turret traverse with 46.8 degrees per second allows you to turn your turret quite fast. You can basically redirect or engage enemies that are trying to flank you very easily with this vehicle. You have 7 degrees of gun depression, which is not the same as the Soviet tanks have, like 6 or 5 degrees. So an added 1 or 2 degrees is something that might just allow you to get the shot off over a little ridgeline or not. 2.11 seconds aim time, that is pretty damn good. Dispersion is 0.33 at 100 meters. So all in all, this tank is pretty damn good. The gun is very, very good, in my honest opinion, and the DPM that this vehicle is able to produce with 2.4K is decent enough. So all in all, I'd say the main star of this tank is going to be the gun that you have right here, and that is something that you will notice immediately when you start playing this tank. Like, hitting tanks feels so satisfying because all of a sudden you roll like for 370, 80 against some other tier 8 vehicle. And maybe if you hit a T-44 with 1,300 hit points, all of a sudden you do like 380, it's down to 920. That's pretty damn impressive in my opinion. So yeah, moving on to survivability. Now, this vehicle is decently armored. It has 1,300 hit points, which is certainly good enough. It's not amazing by any standards, but I'd say 1,300 hit points is certainly enough to be able to deal with other vehicles, and it's not overpowered in the sense that you get too much HP as well. So moving on, you have 80 millimeters of hull armor, 75 on the side, and 45 on the rear. So the 80 millimeters of hull armor actually are very impressive. Now, if we take the armor viewer right here that I have as a mod, and if we have like an angle right here, and we shoot from below, the upper glaciers actually does increase quite a lot, 211 millimeters. Obviously, if you shoot down from below into the lower plate, you're gonna have a much easier time penetrating this tank. But you can see that the angle on this vehicle is quite impressive. At certain angles, you'll be able to bounce quite a few shots, and there are probably going to be quite a few lucky bounces, you know, when you're pulling back and the vehicle kind of gives them a new angle, and maybe the angle that they aimed there at previously was better, but all of a sudden you move your tank, you wiggle, or you drive backwards, and what ends up happening is that the people will ricochet off your upper glaciers. That is something that does not happen a lot with the Lansen C. So that really is something for a vehicle that has a very high alpha damage gun. And moving on to the turret, 190 millimeters of armor. That is very, very nice. But the turret at the front is rather flat, even though it is kind of rounded. It has the similarities to the Soviet design, but still, I mean, effectively it's 190, maybe 220 millimeters. So that is still a lot of armor to have on your front turret for a tier 8 medium tank. But still, it's not enough to bounce everything. You'll probably get penned by a couple of things. Tier 8 tank destroyers, tier 8 heavy tanks that are firing gold. So yeah, check out for the cheeks that you have on this vehicle, especially right here. The gun mantlet, it's not extremely thick at most parts. Some parts are thicker than others, but you can see it right here. It's basically 192 with 40 millimeters of additional armor, but you'll be able to go right through the side right here, and you'll be able to go through the side right here, where basically the gun mantlet moves together with the turret. There is kind of a flat angle right there. It's never a 90 degree angle basically, but still good enough to go through. 190 millimeters of turret armor, I think that's something that when I first looked at this tank, I thought that was going to be pretty damn impressive, and it certainly allows you to take up some certain positions and play this tank more hull down as you would play other Soviet medium tanks. Moving on over to the mobility on this vehicle, its top speed is 50 kilometers per hour. That's the same as I think the T-54 prototype. It does accelerate quite decently, in my opinion. It has a 43.61 degrees per second turn rate, so this vehicle will probably not be run circles around by other vehicles because the turn rate on the tracks and the turn rate on the turret is very good right there. So mobility wise, this vehicle is going to get you to the spot where you need to be. Maybe not as the first tank, but certainly as the second or third. And yeah, that should definitely still allow you to go into offensive positions such as this one right down here. Now this tank also is not very bad in the terms of concealment. You can see that I'm not running any kind of camouflage net or stuff on it. I do have equipment right here with improved ventilations, and I do have some camo trained on these guys. So 527 points for Concealment is not bad at all for a medium tank. And to be fair, it's not the smallest tank, especially its length. It's quite large for a medium tank in its kind of size as a block, but it's not very big. It's not a very high profile vehicle, so you can still be rather kind of, you know, on the lower side of the radar, not getting recognized immediately because this vehicle is not that huge. Spotting wise, also I have a decent crew. I think the standard view range on this tank is about 390 if I'm not mistaken. No, it's actually 380, so the view range is not very good. It's not supposed to be a scout, it's supposed to be a vehicle that deals heavy damage in mid to close quarter engagements, where you can use your turret as kind of the main target, and where you can still bounce certain shots from your hull. And that is something that we're going to check out just in a second in the game that I have secured for you guys, and we'll go over there real fast, then we'll give a verdict on this vehicle. I think you can already tell that this vehicle is very good, or at least in the upper echelons of premium tanks in my opinion. But let's see if it is overpowered or if I'm just overhyping this tank at the moment. So, the game that I've prepared for you guys is on the map Mines, and you can see it's a pretty tense lineup of tier 8 vehicles going up against each other. And basically the position that I would recommend for a tank like this would be the E4 spot, or maybe the hill. But since you're, you know, running around with 50 kilometers per hour, you're probably not going to be the very first tank at the hill or on top of the hill. That will be something that will much rather go to the Poggetto or the Badchat 12T. So I decided to go into this little alcove right here, this little hill or mountain range or whatever, and this allows me to actually fire at these guys right here. Unfortunately for me, I do hit our Poggetto 46 instead of the enemy Poggetto 46. Luckily, there is no team damage anymore in this game, and that is something that can help us in that situation. But we do manage to put another shell into the AMX 5100, and we put another very nasty 354 damage shell into the CS-52 LIS, our counterpart on the enemy team. And what you actually saw as well was that the GW Tiger P, the tier 8 artillery, just one-shotted our T-92 right there in that scenario. That very unlucky little guy. But yeah, that happens on Mines. That is a map that is famous for being or getting basically annihilated by artillery in a position such as that one. So this position allows us to put some pressure on the guys that are trying to go on top of the hill, you know, have a little bit of crossfire with the guys right and left to us. But at the same time, it puts us a little bit of into a dangerous position, because the Poggetto 46 and the AMX 5100 can now go to that corner over there, and they can shoot at us from that spot right there and you know, do some damage. That is where the 7 degrees of gun depression come quite handy, because this ground right here is not very even. You do have some hills, some dips, and having more gun depression will allow you to actually be able to shoot these guys if they do pop up. And you can see that the armor right there for a Poggetto 46, it will suffice, and we do bounce him on. I'm not sure either the hull or the turret. I'm guessing it was the hull. It was right here, and we do manage to bounce him right there. So I decided at this point in the battle that I knew that the enemy team was basically kind of capitulating several key areas of the map, so I decided to go in there, be a little bit more aggressive, push the hill. Unfortunately, the Somua SM on our team is kind of getting focused by the Poggetto 46 and by the other AMX 5100 that was on the hill. But we were able to punish the Progetto 46, and it was unfortunately a low roll with 265. Again, a low roll with 294. But still, you can see that the rate of fire is not great enough to allow you to, you know, take on these targets very rapidly, especially if you're alone against several vehicles. You're going to have a problem. But if the alpha is working in your favor, you can seriously do some big damage right there. So we went around here and we bounced the T28 prototype, we bounced the T26 E4, and that's what we want to see in this tank. We want to see the 383 HP damage shots, and this guy is in a very awkward predicament at the moment, and we put another big round into him, and now we're going to take out the T28 prototype, and basically that wraps up this game where we were able to use the tanks. Well, we didn't really utilize the mobility as much, but we were able to use its armor very effectively without really, you know, paying that much attention to angling and directions where they were firing from. We just pulled back a little bit, and that's exactly what I meant previously, that at that angle, if they're shooting from below you and they're shooting at you and they hit like your upper glaciers, they're going to be bouncing sometimes, maybe not all the times, but a lot of times. And you were able to see that right there. The T28, the T26 E4, we've bounced 1,000 total damage, and we were able to punish these three guys, or the two guys for, I think, something along the lines of 1,500 damage in a very quick amount of time, or a very short amount of time. And yeah, we were able to get 1 kill and do 3,096 damage in total. Now this is certainly a tank that does very, very well in scenarios such as this, but it would do pretty damn badly if it was outnumbered 2-to-1 by a vehicle such as the Progetto and the AMX 5100, because the reload time with almost 8 seconds for a medium tank is not the greatest, but since you have the alpha, that kind of gives you a little bit more leeway. But at the same time, if you're going up against the autoloader, you're going to be in a bit of an awkward situation. But that's where the armor comes into play, and you could see that the armor was quite reliable. But the 1,300 hit points that you have will not be enough to withstand everything, and the armor is not good enough to withstand everything. So you still have to pay attention to where you are going to be engaging, how you're going to be engaging, or how you're going to be taking part in a firefight, and that's something that you still need to take into account. So is this tank overpowered? I would not say that it's overpowered. I would say it's a very good premium tank. Definitely not on the same level as the Progetto 46, because that thing I would definitely count as overpowered, but I would say it's just maybe a couple of steps below it, not very far off though, and certainly one of the best tanks that you were able to get in a tank marathon. I think the Action 10 was also pretty good, but this and the Renegade, I think most of the tanks in the tank marathons were pretty damn good, and I do not regret getting this tank and paying in the end, I think, $15 to get this vehicle. But yeah, I'm not sure if they're ever going to be selling this tank again. I guess probably in a year or maybe half a year. Christmas, they'll probably put this somewhere, and all the guys that have missed out on it will be able to get it. I think it's a good premium tank. Did it need it in the game? I'm not sure, but definitely a good premium tank for your money and for your time. So I'd say the tank marathon was worth it in the end for me, and that's where I'm going to leave it at. So what do you guys think of this tank? What do you guys think of this game? As always, I'd love to hear your guys' opinion. Comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.